Hello and welcome to the News Minute and News Laundry. I'm Nidhi Suresh, and today I'm joined by Anusha Khan, who, among many other things, has spent nearly a decade working on setting up redressal mechanisms in different production houses in the Hindi film industry to address the problem of sexual harassment at the workspace. Anusha, I am so glad that we're finally able to sit down and have this conversation. Thank you for taking out the time. We know that it's been 7 years since the MeToo movement, and we've had many conversations, and you've told me about all the observations you've had before the movement started and as it unfolded and spiraled, and then now 7 years later, I think it'll be very interesting to look back at where we're at. I want to start a little bit by asking you when you began your work on looking at addressing this issue at a workspace in different production houses. Can you tell me a little bit about that? Because I know that it started much before the Weinstein movement exploded globally, right?
Right.
So yeah, how did it begin for you?
So the reason I got into this with some other partners who we were having conversations around this, and we'd always, when growing up, we had worked with women's organizations, and there was already a spirit of wanting to bring about some change or at least create awareness. And I was living in Bombay. I'm on the periphery of the film industry. And every time we spoke about the stuff that was happening, that was quite, what they call open secrets over here. It's open and not talked about, and it's definitely not a secret. But quite normalized. And we would struggle to understand why, when such a progressive law got made in 2013, why does no one know about it?
You're speaking of the PoSH.
Yes, I'm speaking about the Prevention of Sexual Harassment at Workplace law. And it's a liberating piece of work done by people who took this very seriously. So we used to always be very flustered, because we never heard anybody talk about it. And if we brought it up, it was like, oh, are you talking about Vishaka guidelines? And I was like, the guidelines existed earlier. The guidelines is what got turned into an act.
Yeah.
And the act has teeth. The act gives you a lot more to work with. And it sets up a system which is not just of redressal, but it is actually of prevention and prohibition.
Yeah.
So if we achieve the first two, we don't need the redressal. But as of now, we of course need the redressal systems because we are stuck there. So we would struggle with this sort of lack of awareness that we saw around us among educated people, people in the workspace. And we decided that it is mandated by law.
Yeah.
That's no secret. So
and this is post the 2012 Delhi gang rape.
Oh, yes.
A lot of the criminal amendments
have come. Law was amended is when they also went into the Vishaka guidelines and decided to give it this final and definitive layer of support.
Yeah.
From by turning it into an act.
Yeah.
So we started knocking on doors, simply to say that we'd like to do awareness workshops.
This is with different
production houses to begin with. So we said we'd like to talk about this. This is a law that exists. It is mandated that you set up the systems. The system meaning the internal committee that basically takes care of everything that happens under its watch. It said the internal committee is what makes sure that the awareness sessions happen on a regular basis. It makes sure that the redressal system is in place. And, all the other little mandates like posters and notices everywhere, and making sure that every person who's working with you is aware of what the law brings to the table. The knocks were not heard. We didn't even get toeholds. The doors are quite firmly shut on us.
What were they telling you? What were the production houses?
Very typically, they would say, we don't have any problems.
Okay.
2, don't cause trouble, because the minute you talk about it, it'll put ideas in people's heads. I always sort of found this quite darkly funny that the ideas to be able to question something that is not okay is the problem, and not the ideas of how to take the perpetration to a next level with each passing day was never seems to be something that bothered them. So it was really odd that the ideas that we were talking about is what the law offers. And that was troublemaking. Anyway, I'm used to being called the troublemaker, so it didn't bother me. I didn't take it personally. Don't stir the hornet's nest. I'm quoting. If it was so important, our company secretary would have told us about it. Why is it? Who else has done it? So we have to like tell them who else had done it so that they hear that and they say, "Acha, unhone bhi kiya, chalo, hum bhi." We will think about it. So it was a very dismissive, nothing that we were surprised by, but it was disheartening. But it didn't stop us.
Yeah.
Then when Me Too happened.
Yeah. What was that moment like when Me Too started? I mean, I know for a fact that in every profession, as the movement sort of unfolded, every day we had all woken up wondering whose name would come out. Would there be people we know? And I'm sure it's not very different here as well. But for you, as someone that had already been engaging with this work, what was that moment like? What did you think would happen?
And also having done so much research in those years, what kind of knew? So for me, it was not who will it be? It was more like this needs to be called out in my head. That voice is going, even if it's not my sort of experience. So not my story to tell, but definitely a story to support if it does come out.
Here, again, I believe it was with Tanushree Datta's case that set the ball rolling.
Yes, right? Yes, she had the courage to speak about it, and it really, really stirred the hornet's nest.
Yeah,
so to say, right? Yeah. And it triggered all of us at a personal level.
Yeah,
I think for all of us, it first became about what our experiences were growing up and beginning our working careers and carrying on from there. So I think after we were done with the first layers of processing even what we were going through or discussing that with people, for me, Me Too really represented a wave of outrage. Outrage that comes from having repressed a lot of feelings that you have about stuff you've been through or you've heard other people having been through. So, but you see, it's this opening of this box that we've shut inside our heads with all these emotions and all these feelings and all these sort of confusion that we couldn't put our finger on, right? And because I was learning about the act as well, I by then had a vocabulary on what was being done. So I was actually able to listen to somebody's story of what they've been through and actually understand it by the law that, oh, this is there.
Yeah.
This is covered by them. This is a point that's clearly textbook.
Yeah.
So I knew that we have the redressal system, but somehow it just wasn't being looked at like that, right? But actually what Me Too, to my mind, what it did is it gave us courage from the other. So each person's voice was amplified by the next one's, and it created a community which could rely on each other. So even if we somewhere felt that maybe the systems may not support us, but we support each other. So there was a community building that happened, and that continues.
Yeah.
So that for me is what really Me Too stood for.
And what was the nature, just to understand the depth of the issue, what were the nature of complaints that you were hearing?
Me Too?
Yeah, during Me Too, when this conversation found a language, which I think is what Me Too did, because the whisper networks have always existed among women. I mean, we always know which room to go to with somebody, who to avoid at a private space, who not to pick up after a certain point of time at night. But the movement itself gave a certain language.
Right.
And then when you were listening to stories of women, what was the nature and extent of the issue?
I mean, it was a very large sort of bar. It didn't sort of have one kind or one form of harassment. It covered all kinds of harassment, and it was shocking how it can go to spaces that you wouldn't imagine.
Mm.
So the whole enabler thing came into this. The people who know and don't do anything about it. The fact that the empowerment of the perpetrator with each act is mad. It's like, oh, so he got away once, now he knows he can go further and further. So it just, the testimonies were of all kinds, and many of them were told to me in confidence. And some of them were really, really from far back in their careers. But because it sort of brought up this, it opened that box of memories that one had sort of shut tight.
Yeah.
It sort of all came out. And I think in talking to each other about it, we knew that retrospectively, this is not really going to be addressed.
Yeah.
We didn't know, even the law does not cover that part, right? So now I don't know whether it's fair for us to have to, one, experience it, two, hold it in, three, figure out what our redressal systems are or what our avenues open to us are, and four, then actually have the resources and the emotional sort of bandwidth to go the legal route and figure out how it's to be done. There is all kinds of stuff involved, and also continue working because you need to earn.
Yeah. Yeah.
And you're in the same industry that is inflicting all this on you. So.
Yeah. And I remember that, there were names that came up at that point, whether it was from Nana Patekar to Sajid Khan and Vikas Pell, and we saw really the Phantom Production House kind of fall apart. But do you, as someone who was, listening to complaints at that time and talking to women, do you think the full extent actually unfolded, or was it just a scratch on the surface that came out?
Oh, absolutely a scratch on the surface. There's a lot more going on that people know but don't want to know.
Yeah.
This was a scratch. This was a wave, and it was an absolutely stunning sort of wave of voices and outrage and sort of it. That also is a whole gamut of emotions, right? So you have courage and you have fear and you have these are cries for help. And then the cries for help get met with cries of support. So that's but no, we really did not really go to the next layer. And that will happen, and it happens in closed circles. But no.
And it's something I've actually, the time I've spent in Bombay trying to understand this, it's something I've been quite curious about, because if you look at what happened in Hollywood, basically it led to it set up a legal sort of viewpoint that was unprecedented, right? We had a new way of looking at sexual harassment with the Weinstein case.
Right.
And then in the Malayalam industry, something completely different happened, where the case was obviously so brutal that it is part of an investigation, a police investigation. The trial is still ongoing. But at the policy level, the state kind of took cognizance of the fact that this was just the fact that they set up the Hema commission reveals that there was an acknowledgement from the state that this is an issue. I'm curious where the Hindi film industry sort of, when we look at what happened in Hollywood and what happened in the Malayalam industry, where does the Hindi film industry kind of place itself with the movement, according to you?
This is where I start getting disheartened. No real systems have been set up. There has been rampant rehabilitation without any remorse.
What do you mean when you mean rehabilitation?
They're all back.
Okay. Yeah.
Where are the complainants? They've found whatever other ways to live, work, earn. It's not been addressed in a systematic manner at all. One thing that did happen with Me Too was that the Producers Guild of India kicked in. Really hard, really sharp. They got together and they empaneled some of us as their consultants. They made sure that all the members of the Producers Guild were given very clear instructions that they must follow the mandates of the law. Otherwise, they risk losing membership. So all of that happened. And of course, we got calls at all times in the night and they saying, we need to set it up tomorrow. We need to set it up tonight, because it was all like everybody was trying to do this fly-by-night sort of operation of setting up the IC.
And so you went from like knocking on doors
Yes,
that were being
from the
shut
phone
to
being sort of being rung off the hook. Yes, but very few of those calls were genuine. They got the system set up, but then they did nothing about it. So there's a lot that has to go on from within. We can set up the systems for you. We can even be your external consultants. But finally, it is for you as the people running the company to take cognizance of complaints, to create a sense of trust and security for the people working with you, that they can come to you with complaints. So typically, we would have people say, oh, we are such a clean company, we have no complaints. And we know exactly what that means. That means that you're so closed and you're so not sort of opening up the doors for people to come to you and share what they're going through or tell you what their complaints are. So it's impossible that you run a place even with 20 people and you don't have something that comes up. Right? And it's not rocket science. It is something to be taken very seriously. Yes, you have to give it time. You have to give it a certain amount of energy, but it's not something that you can't fix. So you see, the law is being made in such a way that the company is held responsible. The people, the leaders of the company are held responsible for it. So it's really about them taking the lead and then setting up the systems. And it is systemic change will only come when each company, each production house takes it seriously. So they'll have to get out of the mindset of, oh, she's a troublemaker, yaar, isko kaam se nikal do. Ye bar aa jati hai, ya ye, she's instigating others, or she's making people think a certain way. And I also want to quickly add here that we are beyond that time. People are thinking. People are acting on their thoughts. So you can't shut this down. Whether another Me Too happens, you want to call it something else, but it is there and is there to stay. And I think Kerala has been a very, very big inspiration, beacon of light, and we know what it's taken them to arrive where they are, and their struggle continues every day. But they have done tremendous work, and it's been relentless for them. And they've all been through a lot to even fight this, because that was a really solid system. And it's not every system has their own problems, and I don't want to compare the problems, but the fact is that it can be done. And that's to be seen. So you can't now tell somebody to shut up. So every time I do a workshop, we begin and end with saying that we are hanging back. If you want to come to us to discuss anything, something in the past, something that you're feeling, any thoughts, any confusion, invariably we have people. Which means that they've understood. So there is also a small, I don't want to club women as one community and men as one community, because we do inclusive workshops and we do find there is a lot of guilt that comes from a lot of people in the group who are men, who say that, we were there when there was a colleague of ours experiencing something, but we didn't know what to do. So we tried our best to be with her, but we didn't know what to do beyond that, because they didn't know what the law was about.
Do you think the men in the industry spoke up loudly enough?
Not enough. Not enough.
Why do you think that?
I don't know. I don't want to think from a man's point of view. It's difficult for me to do that anyway. But I do think that it's coming from some amount of guilt and some amount of, don't take it personally. This is not, we are not attacking thousands of years of patriarchy. We are saying there's something happening now. Let's address this now. Let's start fixing it from now, from today. This is not women taking badla of thousands of years of patriarchy. वो तो अलग ही बदला है ना, वो तो चलता ही रहेगा, वो तो हम कर ही रहे. But that's happening at home, that's happening in institutions, that's happening with education, that's happening at every level, and women are doing what they have to do.
Yeah.
My issue is with why men are not speaking up enough. What is holding you back? You believe that equality has to be a part of society. You believe that this is wrong. They all say that to me at a personal level. Why not say it out loud? See, if you look away, you're an enabler.
Yeah.
An enabler is not somebody who only supports a perpetrator. An enabler is somebody who looks away. So every time we looked away, we became enablers. So that is something to be looked at very seriously. And enablers, by the way, are discussed in the law as well.
Yeah. Yeah.
And that's like really something, because and there are more enablers than perpetrators. Statistically, you can see that. You won't have perpetrators at these numbers if you didn't have people who looked away or said, theek hai, chalta hai. And there's a lot going on of that.
I want to go back to look a little bit at the women who came out and named men at that point.
Yeah.
It's a twofold question. I think I'd start with kind of asking, what do you think happened to the women who came out and named men who went and said their story publicly? Do you think they faced repercussions in the industry professionally?
Oh, for sure. They faced repercussions of all kinds, right? And losing work was the biggest one.
Yeah.
Losing work, not being seen as somebody who, even people who spoke out in support of them. So repercussions are huge. What is covered in the law is retaliatory methods. They were already getting employed. You tell me, with all your research.
The men were getting employed, you mean? Yeah.
The men were getting employed, or they took a sabbatical and came back crying about whatever they went through. Fair. Of course. I get that. But you're talking about the women who complained. What happened to them? Where are they? They went back, right? So there's a reason for that.
Yeah.
Because we don't have systems that make sure that people can continue despite complaining, we will have women going back.
There's also been the question of what made the women go to the media as opposed to the police. And of course, there's a huge conversation that has to be had about, I don't know if our police system has its methods in place to deal with issues that have happened much before. But this was constantly a conversation that came up during my research here as well, that why did nothing translate into a legal case?
Some cases did translate into legal cases and stopped short of going inside the courtroom.
Yeah.
And that's intimidation was used for that. So that happens. Now, as far as the police is concerned, see, sexual harassment at workplace, the act itself, it is not covered by the IPC.
Yeah.
So actually, you can go to the cops. We go to cops for a lot of things. Can they actually file an FIR? Yes. If we persist, even for smaller stuff, filing an FIR is always difficult, right? I avoid it because once they file the FIR, they have to carry it out.
Yeah. But is it the same also, this is as out of curiosity, with the rape laws being amended,
right,
and the definition of sexual harassment, molestation, stalking, all of that being expanded?
Yeah, that's still under ICC.
Yeah. So would any of this fall under?
Not prevention of sexual harassment at workplace.
It will have to separately be.
That's a separate thing that the company has to take care of. It. And yes, you can go to the police and say, my company is not taking my complaint seriously. So that can be done. But then we know what that is, right? Because that's a whole other battle to be fought. And where does it finally go? Where does it sort of end? What that journey is. And like I said, so basically it's on that one woman to keep fighting in something on her own. How many of us have that kind of bandwidth or familiar support or any other support to do it? Which is why we need the systems at workplace. So I don't see the police doing much about it. They haven't, and there will be all this thing that आपकी तो company का problem है, आपके office का है, आप वहाँ जाके बात करिए, तो हमारे अंदर आता नहीं, and all of that will happen and has happened.
And speaking of the men who got called out, I know that in one particular case of Sajid Khan, there was an inquiry that was conducted, and he was banned from the industry for a year. And when he wanted to come back to the industry after spending this year away, there was a lot of pushback and backlash he received when he wanted to come on Big Boss show and kind of get back to work. We know that a lot of the men have actually quietly gotten back to work also.
I don't know how quiet, but
yeah. I mean, when I look at the way,
it's not a quiet place.
Yeah, true. Also true. But what do we do in a situation where a case has not gone into the legal system? The men have been called out publicly. Do we never, how, as an industry, how do you think we should respond to men who have been called out publicly and want to come back to work?
You want me to speak on behalf of the industry?
No, I want you to speak as someone who's worked closely on
what
these
I
issues.
want to do to them.
What do you think? No, but what do you think is the right way to sort of deal with it, with men who are wanting to come back to the industry and saying that, look, I've served my time. I mean, yes, Sajid Khan has never apologized, which is...
Isn't that the first thing you do? Yeah. Isn't that the first thing you do when you know that you've done something that is not okay? An apology is the first thing. Let's talk once the apology comes. First, accept. Just start with accepting that what you did was wrong. All other conversations will only begin after that.
Yeah.
Do you, in all your research, know anybody who's accepted what they've done? No. So how can I even have an answer for beyond that?
Yeah.
We are stuck at level 0.
Yeah.
It's not moving. And why will anybody apologize when they have been brought back? They are being celebrated. They are getting work with top stars and high budget films. Where is that understanding that there was something that was not okay here?
Yeah. Yeah.
And then how do you tell people to complain? How do you tell people, come out with what, I keep hearing this. Why don't they talk more? Why don't they say it when it happens? It's all very easy sitting in your comfortable sort of space and say, why doesn't this one do that? What are you doing? Set up your system. What are these? Okay, yes, an inquiry did happen. It's one sort of body that decided to do the inquiry. No, we have to have enough bodies that we can approach.
And that also was not the due process in the sense that did not apply to many others.
Yes. So which means we're always running helter-skelter, wondering where to go. Yes. So it's always again on the person who's been through the experience to figure out what to do next.
One of the other questions that also came up in the more recent case, I think there was a conversation around, so this was Pratik Shah, the cinematographer who got accused after working on Homebound. And I think one of the conversations that came up was the definition of the workspace in an unorganized sector like the industry where...
Now suddenly it's unorganized.
So this is what I've been hearing from different production houses, that how do we control how someone behaves off the set in a situation where they may have gone out with employers, but you have a personal relationship with them. And, it's so fluid that one person's probably working on different things. The way power is wielded in the industry also is difficult to define. So how do you...
It's very clearly defined in the laws. Nidhi, it is very clearly defined in the law, and it's actually the part where they talk about workplace employee and employer is a list that you can keep adding to. Because there is no way that anybody who's sitting down to make that law can include everything while they're, because workspaces have changed over time. Yeah. We had work from home during the lockdown. Home became my workplace. And let me tell you that virtual harassment started. Who would have thought, right? So the categories have changed, the spaces have changed. And people who are being harassed know when they're being harassed. And people who are harassing know that this is something that they're doing in the workplace arena. So if I'm going to go to a bar after my film wraps and I have other colleagues with me, I'm well in the perimeter of my workspace.
Yeah.
I have not asked for it. It is unwelcome. So it is off the charts. It's as simple as that. So I don't think there is no gray here. Gray is only as much as we want it to be. Yeah. So if we're suddenly going to start calling the film industry an unorganized sector because, we don't know where work ends and where play begins. No, we know. We know. It's quite clear. So rap parties are workplace.
Yeah. Yeah. And when you sort of look back at what happened 7 years ago and where we are now, I've spent some time here trying to talk to different people, and I have got this feeling that everyone wants to move on now. There's this feeling that, okay, something happened 7 years ago. A lot of things came up. I don't want to talk about it anymore. I want to get on with
Who are these people? The ones who've been accused?
I mean, the accused, yes, but also a lot of women. And it could be from a feeling of not knowing where to go or having paid the price for speaking up and not having any incentive really to talk about this.
Yes, right? And also moving on is part of life. No, I don't want to constantly live with my experience.
No, of course, that you don't obviously
of course I
get
want to continue working, but I don't want to forget what happened to me.
Yeah, but even something as simple as having a conversation about MeToo, which need not be about their experience, there seems to be a lot of silence around it. And I wonder what this silence tells us of not wanting to talk about this anymore.
It possibly to me, I mean, because, before we began our interview, I was telling you that I feel like I'm just repeating myself. And I feel I'm tired of hearing my own voice lament and cry and but that's how many of us feel. But having said that, I'm not cynical. If I was cynical, I wouldn't be doing this work, right? So I have no space for cynicism. I have only space for hope and for change. And I may not see it tomorrow. Yeah. And I may never see it, but I know it's going to come. Because that's how change comes. It comes when you least expect it. It comes with years and years of work.
Yeah.
And it's fine to be forgotten, but the work remains. Yeah. Right? And yes, women are tired. And we want to work. And we want to do well in life. And we want to do what we love doing, which is our work.
Yeah.
So if an actor wants to act, that's what she wants to do. Does she want to keep talking about this? No. Are we offering her solutions, advocacy, some sort of closures? I'm sure she'll be open to talking about it. But if it's just talk, let me hear again what you went through. Yeah, we're tired. Yeah. It's really not something that it cannot become desultory brunch conversations. Yeah. And there's been too much of that. My ears burn. If I walk into a room and I'm like, casual chat, I can't.
Do you think any systems have come into place? I know that, say, OTT platforms have introduced longer conversations about consent.
Have they?
Yeah. And a lot of the people who worked on OTT sets have said that before they go on set, there is a 1 hour conversation that, say, a Netflix or an Amazon does organize to talk about or sensitize people who are coming on the set that there's consent.
I'm glad to hear that.
Yeah, so I'm wondering,
but we're not only talking about consent here, right?
Of course, yeah. It's also about sensitizing them about what workplace harassment is, what constitutes as workspace.
Yes, harassment is different from consent.
Yeah.
Consent is, for me, it's the second level conversation.
True.
Can we first just define what harassment is?
Yeah. That even the way you approach a woman employee, the way you play.
I mean, consent comes later, right?
Jokes. Yeah, 100%.
But consent is not a one-time pass.
Yeah. I think the conversation of consent comes because a lot of men assume consent in ways that they shouldn't.
Because she was polite, she smiled and she laughed along.
Yeah, yeah. And in that sense, do you think there's been any change at all? Do you think, firstly, systems-wise, do you think there are more production houses with ICs and actually functioning ICs, not...
Now, see, the second part I don't know. They have ICs. I have personally withdrawn from certain places where I knew that the IC is compromised.
That it's more of an eyewash.
Yeah, it's an eyewash or it's covering stuff, and because I can fight up till a point, but if you are not committed to doing this properly, then it's sort of, who am I fighting?
Yeah.
And how much of my fight is changing? And I fight. So, so no, functioning ICs, I'm not very sure about how many there are. I think people have ticked the box, so they have ICs. Who sit on it? Is it trained the way it ought to be?
Yeah.
We do 4 to 5 hours of training. I don't know who's giving that kind of time, energy. So a lot of the mandates have actually been just ticked and we've done it, But then it again boils down to complaints to nahi aa rahe.
Yeah.
People are not.
In any manner, has it become a safer space to work in?
I think just bringing about the awareness creates a certain amount of safety, which you're actually channeling from yourself. So when you know it individually that there is something there that supports me if I'm in trouble, it creates a sense of security. It happens to all of us, right? You just feel it.
Yeah.
So that safety may have kicked in.
Yeah.
But systemic sort of shift in terms of feeling safer, I'm not very sure yet. I think we still have a lot of work to do there.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard 2 very interesting opinions from different people. One that men have become more scared. They're more cautious.
That's not always a good thing.
Yeah. I mean,
we're working very closely with these people, right? So we have to work together. We work as colleagues. If you're going to be constantly scared, what are you scared of? Are you scared that you will harass me and I will complain? Yes, be scared.
Yeah.
Are you scared that I'm looking to complain because you're friendly? No.
I think a lot of women have been in this place where they're like, I'm not even going to dissect what this fear means. I'm just glad that there is a little bit of fear.
If it keeps you from thinking your next thought, which could be of harassment, stay scared.
Yeah.
This happened, I'll tell you, long back before MeToo. We set up systems for a very large organization that many floors. And we designed posters and notices and, the people working there identified the spaces which needed. Suddenly the offices looked different. They had all these, and very nicely designed posters. So it's not all just black and white intimidating Sarkari stuff, but it was also, of course, there is a mandated Sarkari notice that goes up, but one. And they told us that from the next morning, when people started coming in, if they would normally shake hands, they were like, नहीं नमस्ते, ठीक है, नहीं हम तो आपसे ज्यादा बात नहीं करेंगे, क्या मालूम आप क्या कह दें. So if that's what it takes, fine. I mean, we're okay as long as we continue working and doing good work together. Because fear comes from somewhere, right? Something is going on in your head. Now you figure that out. That's your processing to do.
Yeah.
But like you said, I am actually, we are all okay with if the fear keeps you
at bay.
Yeah. So be it.
Yeah. The flip side that I also heard was that like you said, this is the scratch on the surface. What happened was more a moment than a movement, really.
Right.
And that the fact that a lot of very powerful men managed to get past the Me Too moment without being called out has also granted some form of impunity, that we got away with it. And that the sort of violence continues to perpetuate in the system, maybe with more sophistication, maybe with more layers, maybe with more awareness even. But I wanted to know what you feel about that. Do you think that it has emboldened people also in a way where they didn't get called out, so this can continue?
हाँ, कि मुझे मेरा कौन नाम लेगा?
Yeah.
It's power. Yeah. Right? So I would like to believe that they also have some fear, which unfortunately can also lead to cleverer ways of harassment. Because not being called out is definitely empowering them. And funnily enough, not being called out publicly in the media is what we're talking about, but they were called out in rooms.
Yeah.
Where we were, building community. So that did happen, but then, that stays with us.
Yeah. But does it change their life or affect their life in any
Not at
manner,
all.
professionally, personally?
Not at all.
Yeah.
And we see that all around us, and we both know who and how many people we're talking about.
Yeah.
So no changes there.
Lastly, what is your hope for the industry? What do you hope? What would be an ideal situation where things are addressed, and what do you think the industry needs to do 7 years after Me Too? What is the work that still needs to be done?
As cliche as it may sound,
and who needs to do the work also?
Can we just begin with mutual respect for each other as work partners? Can we just begin with decency towards our colleagues? Younger, older, junior, senior. Can we just begin with accepting that you are in a workplace to do some good work and everyone's productivity matters? So, to say, what are my hopes from the industry? We should make good films. We should have fun doing it. We're all living our dreams. Yeah. This is an industry which has everyone who's come in here has come in because they dream cinema. They love cinema. This is not a job they have sort of applied to. They have just come searching.
Yeah.
Right? We all did that. If we're coming in with that passion for what we love to do, then can we also somewhere understand that everyone else in that room has also come with that? And I think we have to immediately stop thinking that a woman is powerless or voiceless. That is the biggest shift. And it's unfortunate that I need to say it. It's 2025. And watch out if you think she is and you do something. It's not going to go down well. I'm working with very young people right now. Believe me, Nidhi, I'm not trying to sound optimistic or whatever. There is a shift. There is a shift, and it's a very clear shift. It will just not show up so quickly. So all these people who have normalized the culture of of intimidation and harassment need to think sharp and back off. That's all I can say.
On that note, thank you so much, Anusha, for taking the time out to have this conversation. And I know that a lot of this is repetitive and, you must have, over the last 10 years, 12 years, had this conversation multiple times. But I do believe that, like you said, at some point, things will change for the better, if it hasn't already, in its minute ways.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you, Nidhi.
Thank you.
Thank you for doing this.
No, of course.